Welcome, Venerable Jamyang, and she is blessing us with discussion tonight. She's been practicing Buddhism since I believe the mid-90s and became ordained as a nun in the year 2000. And currently she continues to teach in over several continents, New Zealand and Australia and here in the US. And we'd like to welcome her. And thank you very much for joining us. One last little housekeeping issue is in about 1 minute, I'm going to start a waiting room. And that means if for any reason you get booted out of the, you lose connection or something, log back in, but it'll say you're in a waiting room and it'll just take one of us a second or two to let you in. And with that, let's begin. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you very much. I need to apologize. My voice is not that great. I'm just coming back from Bodh Gaya and I'm in Delhi, staying a few days. And I have to see how my voice is gonna last during this session. But thank you very much for having me. And I just heard a little bit about the discussion and the worries from Karen. I would say, don't worry. Even nuns are not doing this whole cultivating mindfulness of bodhicitta. I don't. But there are many ways that we can do it. And I think today we're not going to talk about that, and maybe next time also not. But when we have a little bit more idea about bodhicitta, how to develop bodhicitta, and why it is so difficult to develop bodhicitta, then we can look into these practices of mindfulness, which I think they are, they're coming from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and they can be inspirational, but they're definitely not to, how to say, we don't have to become obsessed by them and do them the whole day. And I mean, if you can, fantastic, but we do what we can, right? So to start a practice or to start our session today, we always say, adjust your motivation, right?
Good line.
Sorry?
Oh, I forgot I was unmuted. Sorry, I just said that was
Okay. So maybe we take a minute or two to adjust the motivation for this session. And develop a positive motivation for doing this session, for being here, for listening. And then to start this session, I would like to recite us together the foundation of all good qualities. And I hope Michael is going to put that up. Okay, there it is. So read it out loud if you can. That leaves some more imprints in the mind, I think, when we do it out loud. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and venerable Guru. Correct devotion to him is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon him with great respect. Understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once and is greatly meaningful and is difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly, day and night, takes its essence. This life is as impermanent as a water bottle. Remember how quickly it decays and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. Finding firm and definite conviction in this, please bless me always to be careful, to abandon even the slightest negativities and accomplish all virtuous deeds. Seeking samsaric pleasures is the door to all suffering. They are uncertain and cannot be relied upon. Recognizing these shortcomings, please bless me to generate a strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Led by this pure thought, mindfulness, alertness, and great caution arise. The root of the teachings is keeping the Pratamoksha vows. Please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all mother migratory beings. Please bless me to see this and train in supreme bodhicitta and bear the responsibility of freeing migratory beings. Even if I develop only bodhicitta, but if I don't practice the 3 types of morality, I will not achieve enlightenment. With my clear recognition of this, please bless me to practice the bodhisattva vows with great energy. Once I have pacified distractions to wrong objects and correctly analyzed the meaning of reality, please bless me to generate quickly within my mind stream the unified path of calm abiding and special insight. Having become a pure vessel by training in the general path, please bless me to enter the holy gateway of the fortunate ones, the supreme Vajra vehicle. At that time, the basis of accomplishing the 2 attainments is keeping pure vows and samaya. As I have become firmly convinced of this, please bless me to protect these vows and pledges like my life. Then, having realized the importance of the 2 stages, the essence of the Vajrayana, by practicing with great energy, never giving up the 4 sessions, please bless me to realize the teachings of the Holy Guru. Like that, may the gurus who show the noble path and the spiritual friends who practice it have long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of the stages and path, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. And then we can take refuge together. Thank you very much. Maybe we can do it twice in Tibetan and then 1 time in English. Sangye chedan sangye chonamla jangchu badu dani kyapsuchi nage chunyagi pesonamgi drola panchir sangye drupasho. Sangye chedan sangye chonamla jangchu badu dani kyapsuchi nage chunyagi pesonamgi Drola Panchir Sangye Drupashu. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha and the Dharma and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Thank you very much. And I'm going to have some trouble with my voice. I'm very sorry. So thank you very much for having me and giving me the opportunity to talk about motivation. I mean, Venerable Lhundup asked me to talk about motivation, and then later I saw that the motivation actually is how Bodhichitta protects our spiritual practice. So I will try to talk about that as much as I can. And what I would like to do, we have 3 evenings that we speak about the Bodhichitta motivation. And I would like to speak about why do we need to adjust our motivation again and again? And what happens if we don't adjust our motivation? You know, if we all know, when we go through the day, we do things as they come, and we do them maybe with best intention or with a good heart, but we don't really think about, oh, now I'm going to generate a bodhicitta motivation. And so if we do things just as they come, how does our motivation look like? So we're going to look into that more deeply. And then we'll speak about, and maybe that is going to come next time, how do we adjust the motivation, and how do we generate bodhicitta motivation? Bodhicitta is not just having a good heart. It is having a good heart, but having a good heart is not necessarily bodhicitta. So how do we bring our heart to the place where it really is mixed with the bodhicitta motivation? And then how can we sustain that motivation during the day? So today I want to talk about how we, the importance of the motivation, and what happens if we don't adjust our motivation mindfully. And so then at the end of today, there will be lots of time for questions and answers. And I'm actually fine if you have questions that you put them in the chat. And then at the end, maybe after 50 minutes, I will, we can stop and I give you opportunity to actually ask your question. Michael will unmute you. And then we'll do a motivation and meditation together to help us get to that bodhicitta motivation, right? That's where we want to go to. So that's a little bit my plan for the next 3 evenings. And today we start with, why is it so important to adjust the motivation? And we all know that when we go to teachings and we sit in class, and especially if we have teachings from a geshe, but I think also many other teachers, they say, now adjust your motivation, or generate a good motivation. Or they say, generate bodhicitta motivation. And then within 2 minutes, the teaching starts, And so today I started with adjust your motivation. And then we took a few minutes of time to do that. And I am very curious what you did in your mind. Did you observe what happened in your mind? Did you observe what, if you think, oh, I'm going to adjust my motivation, what do you do? Do you just think about, oh yeah, bodhicitta, and then bodhicitta is there? Or do you go through a process in order to develop the bodhicitta motivation? Or do you think, oh yeah, this is not just about me, this is about all sentient beings? Something like that, we need to do very quick now, and we are in teachings. We have 2 minutes time to do that. And we just do something to twist our mind, or to bring our mind into a different condition than our normal, ordinary, day-to-day mind. Correct? So however you did it before we started this teaching, try to remember that, because this is important for later. We go back to that, and we're going to see if that needs a little bit more adjustment, or how we can generate that bodhicitta motivation in a way that we know that this is actually really gonna, whatever we're gonna do is really gonna be supported by bodhicitta. So bodhicitta, I'm sure you all know, bodhicitta is the mind that wishes to attain the state of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. It is a mind in which all the qualities that exist are developed, and a mind in which all the flaws, or all the faults, or all the obscurations have been completely removed. It is a mind that has been developed to its utmost extent. You cannot develop the mind any further than bringing the mind to enlightenment. The only thing that can bring the mind to enlightenment is the bodhicitta motivation. The only thing that can bring the mind to enlightenment is when we are motivated, not just by our own benefit, but by the benefit of all sentient beings. All sentient beings without exception. So we cannot leave anyone out. Not anyone. You know, and often we have maybe a good motivation, but not for this person, not for that person that harmed me so much. I want to work for everyone, but not for this one. You know, when we have a mind like that, bodhicitta is not possible. Enlightenment is not possible. So sometimes the teachers say independence on that one person, that one person that hurt us the most, that we have suffered from the most, independence on that person, we attain enlightenment. Independence on that person, we can generate the bodhicitta motivation. Only when we are able to actually open the heart for that one person will we be able to generate a result in our own mind, which represents that total development of all qualities. So that person then becomes very precious, right? We need to keep that person very close, because only independence on that one, we will be able to develop the mind of enlightenment, or the bodhicitta mind. And I'm sure you have received many teachings on bodhicitta. You have heard the term many, many, many times. And maybe you have the feeling, oh, now we're going to get over this again and again, you know. And maybe that is true. But I'm going to try to point some aspects that might help you to enrich, you know, generating the bodhicitta, and also enriching looking at motivation. When I met Lhundup Rinpoche for the first time in 1997, I had some problems with my upbringing, you know, was not all happy. And I asked him, like, what do I do? How do I do this? And he said, you know, generate motivation. Motivation is most important. Pure motivation is most important. And I thought, but I have good motivation. You know, I always want other people to be happy. My motivation, but actually already for 30 years, this comes to my mind again and again. Motivation is important. And how do I generate a pure motivation? Right? I can have a good heart, but it doesn't mean that my motivation is pure. And I will explain you in these 3 evenings why it is like that. Just the good heart might not be good enough to have a bodhicitta motivation. Good heart is very good. Good heart makes that we help other sentient beings, but good heart is not necessarily based on reasoning. Good heart can come completely from emotions. And when the good heart just comes from the emotional mind, you know, it is often polluted or mixed with our own interests in a way that we actually don't want to have that in order to generate bodhicitta. So why is motivation important? Motivation, if we talk about motivation, then in Buddhism, we often go back to intention. Intention is when we think about mind and the mind and its functions, we talk about the mental factor of intention. Have you heard of that? I see only 3 of you. And if I say something that you have not heard of, please ask me, you know, then I will explain further. But in the mind, mental factors arise, all kinds of functions arise. And intention is one function of the mind. And intention is present in every moment of mind. It is one of the 5 omnipresent mental factors, which means that in every moment of mind, we direct our mind, whether we like it or not, whether we are aware of or not, there is intention. And another word for intention is karma. which means that in every moment of mind, we create karma, whether we like it or not, whether we are aware of not. Every moment of mind, we create karma, which will have an effect at a later point in time. Every moment of mind, whatever intention we have, whatever action we create, that will come back to us one day in some form. Whatever we send out will come back to us, right? So when we have a pure intention, when we have a good intention, goodness will come back to us. So for our own benefit, intention is extremely important. And if we look into one action, then they say what determines the effect of your action are two things, the two main things. That is your intention, and it is the dedication of your action. You know, and if you have heard stories about or teachings about karma, then we speak about the 4 factors of karma. That when we create karma, there are always 4 factors included in your action. The first one is intention, and that is the most important one. The second one is the object. So you set out for an action, and for instance, I'm going to do an action of giving to this person. And so when that person becomes the object of your action. So then when you do that action of giving, you need to actually give to that person in order for your action to become successful. And then there is the action itself, the action of giving itself. That is also important. And then there is the completion of the action. Completion means that once I've done the giving, I rejoice. I say, oh, how wonderful. I did this action of giving. And I'm so happy that I did it. I'm so happy that I could make this person happy. And I dedicate my merits, for instance. So from this action, from these 4 aspects, the intention and the rejoicing or the dedication are the most important aspects. Some teachers even say what you do in between is not that important. If you have a good intention and at the end of the day, you dedicate, that is the most important thing. Right? So important to remember. So that means that the result of whatever we do, the result of our actions is strongly influenced by our motivation. If we have the motivation to benefit only one person, for instance, take that action of giving. I have the intention, I'm going to give something to my neighbor. I know that he needs something and I'm happy to give that to my neighbor. My motivation is to benefit only one person. Then the karmic result of that will be accordingly. Right? You have benefited one person, then the merit of having benefited one person will come back to you. If I have the intention that by benefiting my neighbor, I'm actually going to benefit my whole village, because I know that when my neighbor has that certain thing that I want to offer him, that will somehow influence my whole neighborhood or my whole village in a positive way. So then when I give, I have the motivation, I have the intention to benefit my whole village. Then the result of that will be accordingly. I will collect the merit of having benefited that many sentient beings. Same action, different motivation, then the result will be different. So if I have the intention to benefit all sentient beings, then the merit that I collect with each and every action that I do is accordingly. It is the merit of having benefited each one of these sentient beings. So then when I do that action of giving to my neighbor with the motivation of benefiting all sentient beings, for instance, I could wish I wish I could give this to all sentient beings. But I only can give it now to my neighbor, but I do that with the wish to be able to do this to all sentient beings. Then the mirror that I create with that same action is accordingly, is as if I have given that to all sentient beings. And that is what will come back to me. And that sounds very self-serving, right? I'm going to think that I'm going to benefit all sentient beings in order to serve myself. And in a way that is correct. Becoming enlightened, we can only do that when we do that in dependence upon all sentient beings. But enlightenment is the highest form, or when we achieve enlightenment, we will experience the greatest happiness that is possible to be experienced. And so if we look how we move through life, everything that we do is in order to be happy. Everything that we do is in order to be free of suffering. Everything, right? Every action that we are doing is focused on, I want to have more comfort. I want to have less discomfort. There is nothing that we do in order to increase our suffering. There is nothing that we do in order to have less happiness. So if that we do that, this is our nature, right? And that nature, we cannot change that nature. We should not change that nature. Becoming happy is nothing wrong with. Wanting to be happy is nothing wrong with. But if we choose to become happy, and that happiness refers to the happiness of enlightenment, that is the biggest happiness that we can achieve. So if we have this wish to be happy anyway, why not doing it wisely? Why not doing it in a way that it is actually giving us a very good result for ourselves? And why not doing it in a way that it also has very good result for everybody else? Right? Generating bodhicitta is just that. Finding the best way to be happiness for oneself, but we do that in order to be able to have the capacity to lead other sentient beings to their happiness. So when we set a motivation and we look into, for instance, the Abhidharma text, the Abhidharma talks about different types of motivation. And they talk about causal motivation and the motivation just before the action. And the causal motivation is the motivation that you can set, for instance, at the beginning of the day. I wake up in the morning and I think today I'm going to use for the benefit of all sentient beings. And I go through all the reasonings why I want to set up that bodhicitta motivation, and I go through the reasonings that help me to get to that bodhicitta motivation. And I meditate on that. Then the whole day will be influenced by the bodhicitta motivation. If you do that in the morning and you go to your office, for instance, and you have this annoying, how you say that? Your annoying colleague, saying something to you, most likely that bodhicitta motivation will come to your mind. And you will think, I'm not going to react today to you. I'm going to look at you in a different way. What is your problem? What is your suffering? What can I do in order not to make you more suffer? What can I maybe do to make you more happy? It will be there, even if it is in the back of your mind. And when that annoying colleague is there, and normally you snap at this person, even when you snap, there will be something in your mind going on that maybe I shouldn't do that, or maybe I can do this differently, or something will be there to soften your normal reaction. So setting a motivation up at the beginning of the day is called causal motivation. And we do that in order to influence the rest of the day, all our actions during the day. During the day, these actions will not come from a pure bodhicitta motivation, but the normal motivation is influenced by bodhicitta motivation. So it becomes a little bit less normal and a little bit more bodhicitta. And so then besides the causal motivation, there is the motivation before the action. And so that we can renew again and again and again. So when I talk about your annoying colleague and your normal motivation, your normal motivation could be, you know, I'm going to get back to him or to her. That is a negative motivation. That is a motivation that wants to maybe harm or tease or something that is not so pleasant. The direct motivation can be, okay, you're annoying me, but I'm going to benefit you. Right? I can change my motivation. I can generate a positive motivation in each moment. And the causal motivation of bodhicitta might influence that. So I could say to this colleague, or I could say to myself when this annoying colleague is in front of me, I know you're annoying me, but you know what? I'm just going to take this to another level and I'm going to benefit you. What is the best way to benefit you? Right? So then I can renew my bodhicitta motivation in that moment and act from bodhicitta. So I just want you to be aware of these types of motivation. The motivation, the causal motivation, which is done at the beginning of the day or long before an action. And then the motivation of before the action. Another example is, for instance, and it's maybe not a good example as a Buddhist, but that's what's coming to my mind. For instance, I need to take care of a meal for my family. And so I need to go out and hunt. Need to go and get some meat on the table. So I go out with a concern for my family. I need to provide food for my family. I go out, I'm a man hundreds of years ago. I go with my gun, I go out, I shoot a rabbit or a deer, I bring it, and then the moment of shooting that rabbit, I want to kill that rabbit, right? I'm not thinking, oh, there is the meal for my family. I'm not thinking about my family. I'm not thinking about doing good. I'm thinking about, I'm going to kill that rabbit. So my causal motivation is a good motivation. My causal motivation is one of concern for others. I need to provide some meal. Then the immediate motivation before the action is, I'm going to kill that rabbit. Right? The killing of that rabbit is a negative action, but it is influenced by the positive motivation of killing that animal in order to provide food for your family. Right? So all our motivations are mixed. But the more we can generate positive motivation, either at the beginning of the day or before each and every action that we are doing, is helpful for ourselves, will help to create more positive karma. Are there any questions so far? So Karen asked if I can go in a bit further into the relationship between mind states and accruing merit, with the example of giving to the neighbor and then while thinking to benefit all sentient beings. So when I give to one sentient being, with having in mind that one sentient being, I create the merit of having given to one sentient being. Right. If I give to that one sentient being, having in mind all the people from that village, benefiting all these people from that village by giving that one thing to that one person, I create the merit of having benefited all these sentient beings of the village. So the more beings I can call to mind that I will benefit with my actions, the more merit my actions produce. It is actually as simple as that. So then when I can keep in mind all sentient beings, when I can, and that is what we do when we generate the Bodhichitta motivation, all sentient beings are in our mind. Then whatever actions we are doing creates the merit of having done that action in relation to all these sentient beings. So we create incredible amounts of merit when we have a Bodhichitta motivation. And that is one of the reasons why we want to generate that. But that sounds really bad. That is one of the beautiful things of Bodhichitta motivation. It creates such an enormous amount of merit. And so that means that when we have a lot of merit, merit is what helps us to go fast on the path. Merit is what helps us to have no obstacles on the path. So when we have a lot of merit, you have these people in life, no matter what they want, they will achieve it, right? Without any problems. It comes to the mind and it happens. Have you ever meet these people? They have a huge amount of merit. They look like they're lucky. It looks like they somehow just know how to do it, but they just have a lot of merit. There are people who set out to do something, no matter what they try, it's not going to happen. That is a lack of merit. For instance, I'm sick, I'm needing a doctor. I cannot find a doctor who helps me. I cannot find a doctor who can help me. Even if I have an appointment with a doctor, the doctor doesn't show up. Even when the doctor shows up, he gives me medicine, the medicine doesn't work. All that are symptoms of not having enough merit. There are also people, they call a doctor, they have immediately the right doctor. The doctor comes, gives them the medicines work. Within 2 days, they're better. That's a sign of having a lot of merit. And so the more sentient beings we have benefited, the more that benefit will come back to us in the sense that whatever we want to achieve, we will be able to achieve.
But morally and ethically, how would you apply what you just said to those in the world? I hate to go with Trump, but I can't think of the one in Brazil. Anybody that's Bolsonaro. I mean, how do you justify the achievements of people who much of the world would look at as not good people? Let's put it that way. I'm not trying to turn this into political stuff, but I'm a bit no, I'm trying to be delicate about how to define it, because it's a difficult question. Because by common standards globally, achievement is measured, at least in our century, by wealth and power. So do you mean spiritual achievement? I mean, how are you defining achievement? Just achievement in general?
No, I even also mean even worldly achievement is part of that. It's coming from merit. So what we normally say in Buddhism, or what is said in the text, is that the karma that we create in this life doesn't ripen in this life, but will ripen in future lives. So the merit that ripens for people who have a lot of money and power is not coming from actions they have done in this life. It's coming from actions they have done in past lives.
Right. Right.
So when there's someone who has a lot of money, we would have to say they must have created that merit in past lives in order to have now all that money coming to them. Money is one of the things that is coming from merit. Then what they're doing with that money and with that power in this life is going to determine their next life.
Right.
Right. So the only thing that we can bring to mind to have some kind of good feeling is that we say, well, one day, they will experience the results of their actions one day. That will come back to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah.
So it doesn't come from this life at all, what they are experiencing. They might think that, and if you make a lot of money, then people say, well, I deserve that, right? In Buddhism, it's not like that. You don't deserve it. It's because if you had a lot of merit from the past. That is what is ripening right now. There are many people who work very hard and they earn very little money. You would have to say, oh, don't they deserve it? Yeah, they also deserve it, but they don't have the merit to get it. Right.
Okay.
What about in the situation, you probably brought this up earlier. So I want to give this to my neighbor. I want to do it for the benefit of the whole village, except for that one guy who lives on the other side who always irritates the heck out of me.
Yes.
How do
you feel about that? How do you feel when you generate a mind like that?
Well, for me, then I have to question, am I really doing it for the benefit of anybody but maybe the person I give, or maybe even I'm only doing it for myself, right? I'm doing this so I can feel good about what I just did. And if my neighbor gets better from it, that's awesome. If the village benefits from it, that's awesome. As long as that one guy over there doesn't get better, I'm okay with this. And so I feel like that's now, it actually takes away any merit that I would have done, because it's now, it's contravening what I'm doing, because I'm not doing it for any one person. I'm doing it despite that one person.
Yeah, so according to the Madhyamika, it says that even when we give with a bad motivation, we will still receive the merit of having done that action of giving. So even if I give to my neighbor and I cannot stand that neighbor and I just do it so that I get some merit, not for him, but just for me to get some merit, even then I will get merit from having done that action. So the action of giving is by nature a positive action, which means that by nature merit will be generated. But how much merit will be generated depends a lot on your motivation. So partly your motivation is good, right? You want to benefit all these sentient beings, but you can see that there is bias in your mind, which means bias comes from attachment, right? So there is still some attachment in your mind. So it is not a completely pure bodhicitta motivation. It is mixed with attachment. So I wouldn't beat myself up and then say, so therefore you don't earn any, or you don't get any merit. Yes, you do get merit, but you don't get the full lot because your motivation is mixed with attachment. All right. So keep giving, even if the motivation is not completely pure. It's very beneficial. So let's look at that impure motivation that we have, right? Because what you're just saying, Michael, we all have a motivation that is mixed, right? Even when we generate bodhicitta motivation, even when we have a good heart and we are willing to do many positive actions, we think, oh, but not for this person and not for that person. I just want to do it for you, but, right? We all have that kind of tendency in the mind. We're not free of that. I'm not free of that. I'll confess, I'm not free of that. Because it is very, very difficult to have a mind that is equanimous, that has equanimity towards all sentient beings, that doesn't have a preference, right? We all have the liking and the disliking. And because we haven't realized emptiness yet, we all have a reaction to the things that we like and that we don't like. So when we encounter things that we like in life, there is automatically attachment. And when we encounter things that we don't like, there is immediately aversion, right? And so that will mix with our motivation.
I think Barbara had a question.
Yeah, I can see, Karen. What if you're giving to what others might consider a bad or evil cause? How does ethical judgment relate to merit in the next? What do you mean with an evil cause? Like buying alcohol for someone, or?
Well, that's a good, a more innocent.
Buying money, giving money to buy weapons.
Exactly.
Or...
Right, right.
So when you look into giving, and you would go into the Lamrim, there is a whole chapter on how to give properly, what is proper to give and what is not proper to give. So if I want to make, for instance, if I give towards weapons that are going to kill other sentient beings, you know, then I really have to check my own motivation. What is the reason that I want to do that? I cannot think about a good motivation why I want to buy weapons, right? I buy a weapon to kill. I might buy a weapon to protect my family. That might be a good motivation, but the cause itself, the object itself, has also the capacity to harm, you know, so you have to check that. If I buy alcohol for an alcoholic, and I think I'm helping that person to get more happy, you know, you can say many, many things about that. For instance, if I just buy a bottle of alcohol and I give it and I leave, what is going to be the benefit? Not much, you know. What is that person actually needing? Maybe that person needs a warm place to be instead of being warm inside from the alcohol. Maybe that person could do better with a sleeping bag, or maybe I should pay for a hotel for a night instead of buying him the alcohol. Or maybe thinking how World War II ended for X. I don't know how World War II ended for X.
Well, the dropping the bomb in Japan helped change the direction of the war utterly. And if that hadn't been done, it's not really debatable. The war would have taken a very different turn on both sides, in both theaters.
Yeah, that's what we think, no? I always think that I think that we actually do not really understand how these things work and what is all going on in the background.
Yeah.
But this is definitely the story that we are told. We had to throw the bomb in order to end the war. But is that really true? I would challenge that story. Okay. I challenge all the stories, actually. So it's not just this one.
Okay.
Because that is a very limited way of thinking. We have this thinking, oh, cause and effect, there is one cause and then there is one effect. I don't think life works like that. I think there's so many causes and conditions that contribute to each and every event. And, you know, if we look into what His Holiness says, it is always like we only go for non-violence. We do not want to contribute to any violence in order to find peace. You know, he's like, how can you find peace? Independence on violence. And in order to really understand that from violence, there cannot come any peace. You know, you have to think deeply about it. If I can temporarily stop something, for instance, if there is a child standing next to me screaming, I can hit the child so that it stops screaming. But what do I do on the long term in that relationship? Right? It's not going to be any good. That child will be scared of me. That might decide, oh, I'm not going to scream when she's here because she will hit me. And I think, well, I achieved what I want to achieve. The child is not screaming. But in the meantime, I lose that child in a positive way, right? The child will also not be open for anything positive that I have to give.
Right.
Right. So in the long term, I damage maybe more by having that short-term effect of stopping the screaming.
Or invading Tibet, for example.
Invading Tibet?
Yeah, you know, I mean, the Chinese invading Tibet, I don't see a resolution to that in favor of the Tibetans for a long, long time. It will take a groundswell of consciousness in the population.
Yes, so what, I think what we don't think, you know, the Chinese invade Tibet, and we want to bring it back to how it was. Right? We think that is so cruel what they're doing, and it is so not right. We want to restore the situation and as how it was before.
Well, I wouldn't say how it was. I would say just restore the freedom of choice to the Tibetans is probably a better way to describe it. Because the way Tibet was in the 1950s was very poor, and it's I think in better shape economically now, though I could be totally wrong. I don't know a lot about that aspect of the country now. But at least they have
so His Holiness.
Yeah,
it's true. I understand what you're saying. So His Holiness says, like, there are causes and conditions for everything that happens, right? So the reason that the Chinese invaded Tibet, there are causes and conditions within Tibet why that could happen.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And before the Chinese invaded, they have been warned many times, you have to stop these inner conflicts because you are creating a situation that you're going to be very vulnerable for outer forces to come in.
Interesting.
And they didn't do that. Right?
Fascinating.
So there is some responsibility from the side of the person who is experiencing the suffering.
Yes.
In what they are going through. Let me first of all say, you know, all suffering, we don't like to see it. We don't want it to happen. A lot of suffering in the world is totally unjustified. A lot of suffering in the world could even be addressed if people would just have opened their heart for each other. You know, we could live in a very good world if we would have a different state of mind.
Why do you think?
Or if our leaders would have a different state of mind, if the majority of people would have a different state of mind, we could live very, very different lives.
But why do you think as human beings we don't open our hearts? There is so much suffering in the world. What?
We talk about. I wanted to talk about.
Great.
Right? Because we have a way. There is a way that our mind works that we cannot do that. And so the way that our mind works is that we all want to have happiness and we want to be free of suffering, right? We all want that. That is not a problem in itself. But the way what we think as happiness, Barbara has a question. You want me to stop for that, Michael?
I just want to be mindful of the time because she does have a question in.
Okay.
I thank you for your teaching, Venerable. And I just wanted to clarify something in my mind.
Yes.
Intention is the action and motivation is the reason for the action. Do I have that right?
Intention and motivation is the same thing.
Okay. I guess maybe from other teachings that I've had that they were explained differently. Is again the intention is the action of doing something.
So the motivation or the intention is
like the intention would be I'm going to give my neighbor something. That is my intention. But then my motivation for doing it is why am I doing that action? Do I have that right?
Maybe there is this difference, what I call the causal motivation and then the immediate motivation. So I can have a reason, I can sit at home and think, oh, when I'm going to give my neighbor this, and I vision all these, people in the village getting more happy when I do that. This can be my initial motivation. And then there is the motivation when I give it to the neighbor. So these are two moments in time, which we both call motivation, right? But when we look into motivation itself, motivation is referring to intention. And intention arises in every moment of the mind. And so when I sit and I meditate and I can set a motivation for the day, I use my intention to set that motivation for the day. So my intention is, I want to set a good motivation for today. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to think about how to set up that motivation.
Okay. Okay. So the intention is the actual, it's action.
Intention is the first moment of action, the direction of the mind.
Okay. Okay.
And then I can let that follow by an action. You know, so I have the intention to set a good motivation, and then I start engaging in setting a good motivation. That is the action that follows. But in every moment of that action that follows is also intention. There is, again, a direction of the mind. How do I direct the mind? And I know that people use intention and motivation maybe as two different things. For me, they are very strongly related. And so even if we are not aware of having an intention, the intention is still there. Even if we are not aware that we have a certain motivation, the motivation is still there. True?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So becoming more aware of the motivation means that we are more mindful of the process and that is happening in the mind, and therefore maybe are more able to direct the mind in a certain way. But that, for me, being motivated is like we can be aware of it or not be aware of it. There is still motivation there.
I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there are people who label things differently. And I'm not familiar with how everybody does that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if you can listen to what I have to say separate from somebody else, and then give it some time and think about it. And then later, maybe you can see, oh, they actually have an overlap, or maybe what she's referring to as this person is referring to as that. Right? Because we all use maybe different words for the same thing, or same word for different things.
I understand. Thank you.
Sorry if I can't clarify that more.
No. I was just a little bit confused just from another teaching. And I just was trying to square it in my mind.
Yeah, I've heard people say, oh, this is this motivation and that is that. And I also get confused when I hear that, because for me, that doesn't really match with what I've learned in the teachings. And so maybe it's more coming from a psychology point of view. You know, because the psychology is also using all these terms that we are using, and then has its own description of things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Could that be true?
It could be. That isn't the case. It was another Buddhist teacher who I'm referring to.
Yeah.
And again, it seems more than semantics, though, to me. And I'm just trying to square it in my mind.
Okay. So
how I think about it is intention is the action. I will do something. I will not do something. And then the reason for doing it or not doing it is what my motivation is.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And you're seeing it differently?
I say it differently. So yeah. I say intention is a is a function of the mind where the mind gets directed.
Attention, and intention, yep.
And how I direct my mind is what you maybe call the motivation. Intention is action in the sense that it is a mental action, but from that intention, I can engage in mental action, I can engage in verbal action, I can engage in physical action. So intention is not physical action. Intention is a mental action that directs the mind. And the reason why I have a certain intention can, of course, come from things that I have experienced before, which can then what you call can be my motivation. That will influence my intention. So intention literally is called action, is called karma. With intention, we create karma. But the action, the physical action that follows from intention, which we also call karma, is not intention itself. No, make it even more complicated. And I think the way that we direct our mind in every moment is influenced by whatever we have been thinking before. Right, but that to me that feels more psychological. Actually, what you're saying, I'm curious about your this Buddhist teacher. I could have a debate with him if you want me to.
It's just things for me to think about.
Yeah, and we can be both right? It's like both are aspects of intention and motivation. We just use a certain name. We use the same name in a different way.
A label, yeah. I get
so
that.
If you listen to the meaning of what I'm saying, and you listen to the meaning of what this other Buddhist teacher is saying, they're both true, right? They are both true. They're just coming from a different perspective. Explanations.
That makes sense.
Can you do something with that?
Thank you.
Okay. And then Venerable, somebody at the center has a question as well.
Okay.
The center is still on mute.
Oh, hello. I was just thinking maybe this would be a helpful thought. If intention were equal to action, then you could have, then the intention would always have to be the same as the action. But in reality, in intention, you can start with one intention, but the action will come out differently. Is that helpful? Separate the two?
I don't hear everything what you're saying. I hear that you're talking about intention.
Oh, just because of the previous question, I think there was some confusion between intention, motivation, and action. And the statement was that intention is action, but I was suggesting maybe thinking about intention as separate from action, because if you have intention equals action, then no matter what your intention is, your action will always follow, and it would be the same. But in reality, you can have an intention, and the action that follows is not in line with your intention. For example, I don't know if this is making sense.
Then
the sound is very bad.
If can you have an action that's that's inconsistent with the motivation and intention? So I have a motivation, I have an intention, but then my action is inconsistent.
Like what? If I'm late for a meeting, I think I must speed to make it on time. This is the intention. The motivation is to not be late.
Or I drive home and I'm intent on not arguing with my wife, children. I sit in the garage. I meditate for 15 minutes with my generating the motivation to not argue with my wife and my children. Then I walk in the house and I will argue with my wife and my children.
Yeah, so you tried to change your motivation and you didn't manage.
Right. So I had a motivation to not do this, or and maybe that's the problem. The motivation was to not do something, and having a motivation to not do something is kind of the same thing as having a motivation to do something. It's like not thinking of a white polar bear, right? You can't not do that.
Yeah, but you had the intention. You actually had the intention to argue, right? You were angry and you wanted to argue, but you don't.
No. What I'm saying is, I want to not do that. I want to build
you want to
a
not
positive
do that.
relationship.
But your whole system wants to do that, and you say, "Oh no, I do not want to do that." So your intention is that you want to do that. That is intention. That is the delusion is there, right? I want to fight, and then your rational mind says, "Oh no, I don't want to do that," and I'll meditate, and then I'll calm my mind down, and then you walk into the house, and then it happens anyway. Right? So whatever you tried to do with your conscious mind wasn't strong enough in order to counteract that emotional reaction that was there. Right? So the intention is that emotional reaction. That is what I would say. That is your real intention, and you try to divert yourself from that, which is good, because we all have intentions which are motivated by the delusions, which are our biggest problem, right? And if we do not adjust our motivation, most of the time we are motivated by our delusions. And so what we are doing this is intention, right? Intention means, for instance, I'm finished here. I'm not thinking, still thinking about the teaching, but I get up and I go inside the house and I'm going to get a tea, right? My intention is getting up and walking out. This is what motivates. This is what makes me move. That is intention, what makes me move. Most of what makes us move, we are not aware of. We're just doing it. Right? And so what we're trying to do with Buddhism is bring mindfulness, bring awareness to our intention, to make us aware that if there is no awareness, the only reason why we do things is because I want to be happy and I want to be free of suffering and I want to have comfort. I want to be free of discomfort and I want to feel good. That's the only thing I want. And I'm constantly striving for that. And so by bringing more awareness to our motivation or intention, for me, they're the same thing, They're not exactly, they're almost the same thing. The more awareness I bring to the intention why I do things, the more I can bring reasoning to that attention. And with the reasoning, I try to lessen my emotional reasoning. I try to mix my emotional reasoning with the more rational reasoning. Emotional has not really a reason, but I try to mix my emotional reaction with more rational reasoning. And with the rational reasoning, I try to bring my motivation in line with a way of being, motivated that is much more beneficial for finding happiness for myself, but also finding happiness for others. Right? Most of the motivations, the intentions, we have no clue. We just do it, right? If you say, why are you doing that? We come up with a story. But I think most of the time, these stories are not even the real emotion, right? Like Michael, you said, I'm going to go in the house and I don't want to fight. But your real emotion is, I want to fight. Right? But we don't like that. So we say, no, I actually don't want that. But if you are honest with yourself, you do want that. And you're struggling with that. And so you want to change that. And so the only way that we can change that is by bringing in reasonings why it is stupid to fight with your wife. Right? Stupid for yourself, stupid for your relationship, stupid for her, for everyone. And so the more we understand that, and we can catch ourselves in the motivation and in the reasons why we are doing what we are doing, honestly, truthfully, to according what is, not what we tell ourselves, but according to what is, then that will help us to bring the motivation to a place where it becomes less self-serving, less self-centered, less self-obsessed. And so we are emotional beings, that's completely true. And loving kindness is an emotional state. No, so loving kindness is also not detached. Normally, I'm motivated by, I want to be happy myself. I want to be happy. I want to be happy means I also want the people that I love to be happy. The people who are around me to be happy. And I want them to be free of, I want to be free of suffering. I want them to be free of suffering. That is me being an emotional being. And so from there, the fighting comes, like, oh, my wife is not benefiting me in the way I would want her to benefit me. And I'm very angry about that. And I'm going to tell her that, she's there to benefit me. And she's not doing that at the moment. That is coming from attachment. So what we want to do is we want to understand that attachment is, although it appears as that what is making us happy, that is actually making us unhappy. We need to see that attachment, although it appears as serving us, is actually harming us. We need to see that the self that is attached, me, I want this me, the way that me arises, is absolutely not in accordance with reality. That me that arises, if we investigate that, it doesn't exist at all in the way it appears to us. Right? And that me, independence on that me arises that attachment and aversion with what we react to emotionally. And that is creating all the suffering and samsara. And so what we are trying to do is one way of making life more happy is, instead of thinking about me, I turn that mind around and I turn it towards others. I'm going to benefit me. No, now today I'm going to benefit others. So I defer the attention from me towards others. So the way that I normally fight for me, I'm going to fight for others. Not for only the ones that I love, but I'm going to fight for all of them. In order to have a mind like that, we need reasoning, right? We need to be able to counteract that emotional reaction. So instead of saying loving kindness is, instead of saying, I want to be happy, loving kindness is saying, I want to be happy can come from loving kindness also, right? I want you to be happy. I want everybody to be happy. And maybe I even want to do actions that make others happy. That is loving kindness. If loving kindness is pure, without attachment, it is not an emotional state. It is a positive emotion based on reasoning. And that reasoning can only be applied when we are having dealt with our attachment. So we need to be less attached, or we strive for non-attachment. But I wouldn't say detachment. Detachment is often that we withdraw. We withdraw in order not to feel suffering. We detach, But when we have loving kindness, we are very much connecting with the other person. And with detachment, I always feel you cannot connect. With non-attachment, I can greatly connect with others. All right. Time is running fast. So what would you like me to do? Let me say a little bit more, because I want to be also ready for next time, right? So that we really get into this. I think our biggest problem is that we don't really understand what is motivating us day to day, you know? I don't think we are really aware of that self-centered mind, that self-cherishing mind, that self-grasping mind. And so even when we generate a good motivation, you know, often that is mixed with our attachment. Often that is mixed with our, definitely with our self-grasping mind, but also with our self-cherishing mind. I will speak about that a little bit more next time. But if we look into what motivates us in the way we are now, you know, we perceive us in this body. We strongly identify with, this is who I am. So when I want to be happy, I only think about this one. I'm not thinking about me next life. I'm not thinking about, I'm now an ordinary being. I'm not thinking about me being an enlightened being, me being beyond samsara. I'm thinking about me in this body with this mind, you know. I want that person to be happy. So the self-grasping and the self-cherishing is very much identified with this body, with this life. And so when I'm motivated by this body, this life, you know, then every action that I'm doing is coming from attachment or aversion. I like this or I don't like this. I cannot see beyond this life. Not being able to see beyond this life makes that even when we generate a good motivation, it is still so influenced by this life. You know, for instance, I'm a people pleaser, right? People pleasers want everyone to be happy. But what is my motivation? Is that really bodhicitta? Or is it fear? Right? Is it really bodhicitta, or is it, if everyone is happy, I'm happy? You know, this is the only way that I can be happy, when everybody is happy. Totally self-cherishing, self-centered, right? People pleasers look as if they are helping everybody. But if you look deeply into that motivation, it's self-centered, coming from fear, coming from not being liked, coming from not being loved. True? I sometimes think, you know, many of us attracted to the Mahayana Buddhism, you know, we have this mind. We want to work for sentient beings. We want everyone to be happy. But what is the motivation? How much is there pleasing others in order to survive ourselves? And how much is coming from bodhicitta based on reasoning, which we need to do in order to take distance or move away from that emotional mind. Right? Bodhicitta is not an emotional mind. Bodhicitta is based on equanimity. In order to develop the mind of equanimity, we need to deal with attachment and aversion. We need to deal with the fact that there are certain things that we like and are attracted to, and certain things that we don't like and have aversion towards. We need to generate a mind that we're fine with everything. We are fine with everybody. We can see the goodness and the kindness in everybody. Right? This is our biggest problem. And so that problem comes because we are so focused on this life. And so therefore motivated by attachment and aversion. I like this, I follow with attachment. I don't like it, I follow it with aversion. We are looking short term. When I'm angry, when you're angry with your wife, Michael, you're looking short term. You don't think about how your wife is going to wake up tomorrow morning and maybe have a thought in mind, you know, what is Michael? I'm out of here. You just think, I want to fix this problem that is here right now. Right? So we are short, we are these horses with these things on, you know, we look very short term, very focused on ourselves. And in order to change that, we need to go back to where we are right now and then start making steps. And the first step that we make in order to generate bodhicitta is that we realize that this life is not the only life that we have. This life is ending. This life, one day it's going to be finished. Right? The moment we realize impermanence and death, the attachment and the eight worldly dharmas that is normally motivating us will drop, will become so much less important. You know, then we can think then, how would I die in a way that I can die without regret? Then you start looking at your life very differently. And you think, oh, if I think about myself going, you know, at the point that I'm going to die, I'm going to make different choices. And I think, so what if that counteraction with your, or that interaction with your wife is going to be the last of your life, Michael? How strong would that help you to drop your anger? Right? This is the last time you can speak to her. The moment you realize this could be the last time, you know, emotions completely change. Motivation completely changes. That might be more helpful than meditating 50 minutes on bodhicitta, and I don't want to get angry. Right? We first need to realize impermanence and death before we can generate bodhicitta. And impermanence and death is an extremely powerful realization in order to drop the eight worldly dharmas, in order to drop concern for just this life, in order to drop that mind that is constantly influenced by attachment for the happiness right now. You know, and we need to drop that before we can even think about bodhicitta. All right. Karen comes with another question. Can I read that? And then I'll do a short meditation on death, if that is okay with you. All right. We can save for next. What is that? Your question? From an article on the marriage between an ex-nun and an ex-monk now living in South Africa. The shadow side of Buddhist practice is what we call premature non-attachment, which is actually avoidance, masquerading as spiritual attainment. A marriage should challenge to confront. It's true, no? Your shadow side, your anger, impatience, and resentment. Whereas in a monastery, you can hide behind your practice and never reveal these aspects of yourself. Well, that I don't completely agree with. I think me as a monastic, I could never hide my anger and impatience and resentment or attachment. It's all there, you know, it's all there no matter what life form that you choose. But I do think spiritual life in general, whether that is as a nun or a monk or as a lay person, we can jeopardize that by, how you say that? It's not coming to my mind. We might find a way of living where we do not want to engage in certain things, you know. For instance, when there is a lot of, when you have experienced a lot of trauma and you dealt with the trauma by denying, by finding a place in your mind where, you know, you somehow believe that you are pure and they're not pure, and you're just going to develop this purity with your spiritual practice, but you're not dealing with the actual impact of the trauma in your life, you know. This, I think many people are doing this, and you don't have to be a nun to do that. I don't think that that is healthy. And I also think that when you do that, at a certain point, life will call you back and say, hello, there is something else that you need to look at, which might not look so pure and so beautiful and so spiritual, but it's part of life, right? So we have to go back to looking at who am I raw, you know, not the stories that I'm telling, but what is my actual reaction? Actually, I'm angry, but I don't want to be. But actually, I'm angry. There you have to start. You're angry. If you accept that and say, okay, I'm angry, and you sit with that, I'm angry. How does it feel when I'm angry? What am I actually feeling? That is the start of the practice. Right? And we want to get to that beautiful bodhicitta where we are inspired and where we open the heart. But we can only genuinely get there when we have looked into where are my emotions coming from and what is triggering them and how do I be with them. Right? We are emotional beings, and if we want to transcend that, we need our rational mind to do so, but not to deny the emotions, but to be with them by fully understanding what is actually going on. You know, the more we understand both the conventional reality and the ultimate reality of what is going on, you know, then the emotions start to naturally, that's my experience, you know, they seem to be so useless. It's like, oh my gosh, there it is again. Why would I follow that? You know, at a certain point, you can catch yourself there. Why would I go there? It's just going to ruin me. It's going to make me unhappy. It's going to make me feel bad. It's going to make the other person. Why would I go there? So we want to get to a place like that, you know, and then immediately know, okay, what is my remedy? I can focus on this. For instance, if I'm angry with my wife, instead of, I can say, what has she done for me so far? What were the good things that she gave me? What are her good qualities? And I bring that to mind. The moment you can think about the good qualities of someone, it's very difficult to be angry. Anger just gets disempowered. And so there are many ways that we can, many levels of the mind that we can look at. But I think in order to really get to the bodhicitta, we have to go quite deep, you know, to be honest with our emotional reactiveness and be honest with the 8 worldly dharmas that are motivating our daily life. You know, that is the way that we find happiness and are free of suffering. And the first step to do that is by realizing that life is not going to be forever. This life is ending. One day we're not going to be this anymore. We're not going to be me anymore. We're not going to be Michael anymore. We're not going to be David anymore. We're not going to be Karen anymore. Karen is gone. David is gone. Right? So how do we want to leave this life and enter into the next? So do you still feel to do that meditation? Yeah? Okay. Okay, thank you, Karen. Manuka honey, I don't think we have that here in Delhi. But I'm sure within a few days, you know, I'm going back to Dharamsala and the air is a bit better than in Bodh Gaya and in Delhi. My voice will come back. So next time, it will be different. So thank you for being here and having contributed the way you did. You know, it's very helpful for me. I like to be more interactive, and on Zoom it's a little bit difficult, but you guys are doing that, so I really appreciate that. So next time we look more into bodhicitta and how to generate bodhicitta from where we are right now, and maybe we go a little bit more into where we are right now. I'll see how we can do that. And where I can, I'll see it in science, what science says about motivation and how we can integrate that in Buddhist practice. And so whatever you have heard today, I would say, just let it go. Whatever needs to come back will come back. But put it on the shelf for now a little bit. And take a few minutes to just to connect with your body and to let your mind settle. You can choose the posture, whatever is comfortable for you. And then, first of all, generate some appreciation for yourself. You are here, practicing the Dharma, working with your mind. And no matter where you are on the path, no matter how deluded you feel that your mind is, you are here, you showed up, and you have been actively listening. You have been reflecting. You have been developing your wisdom mind, which is the best you could do. And so with the meditation that we are doing now, do that with a mind of non-judgment, a mind of loving kindness towards yourself, a mind that is curious, and then a mind that is accepting each and every aspect of yourself. Who we are today is coming from so many causes and conditions, not just this life, but many past lives also. For every aspect of our being, there are reasons. And we might not know these reasons, but there are reasons. And so what we're doing is not to beat ourselves up, but it is to see clearly what is there, because that is what we need to do in order to know the way to move forward from where we are right now. And so then take a moment to look back at your life. And you can go back as far as you want. Whatever comes to your mind. And look at the experience you had and also the actions that you have done. Allow that to arise naturally without any control from your side. Just observe what arises in the mind without any judgment and without engagement. And then look forward into your life and see yourself getting older. Until you get to a point where you realize that you're not going to live forever. Where you feel that this life is one day going to come to an end. And you can have that realization years before your death. But often this awareness comes when we feel that the strength of the body is fading and that the function of our senses is degenerating. For instance, you need to ask others more often to repeat what they just said. Or you can't see anymore without your glasses. And you're very aware that you cannot do the things anymore that you used to do 20, 30 years ago. And then move further forward in time towards the moment of your death. That is inevitably going to come. And contemplate the people that already have died. Your parents, your grandparents. People from your family. The neighbors from your childhood. All those adults from your life when you were a kid. They're all gone. And you realize that your death is going to come very soon. And when that time of death is going to come, you will have to leave everything behind. You have to leave behind the ones that you love, your friends, your family. You need to go alone. You came alone into this life, and you leave alone. You won't be able to take your belongings, no matter how much you treasure them. You even have to leave behind your body. The one that has accompanied you your whole life. Your body that we identify so strongly with, that appears as who we are. And so then observe what at this moment in time is important for you, is important in life. If you want to die with a good feeling, what is important for you in life? If you want to look back at your life with a good feeling about yourself, with no regret, but even more than that, just a good feeling about what you have done, what is important for you. And how would you adjust your actions in life to make sure that at the end of your life, you can arrive by that feeling of having no regret and feeling good about yourself? And then bring your meditation to a conclusion. Think about what you would like to take from this meditation. And then we can dedicate the merit that we have collected tonight by listening and reflecting and meditating. We can dedicate that towards the happiness and well-being of all sentient beings. Oh, yeah, you can show some prayers. And we can read them together in English. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel Bodhichitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. You who uphold the subduous moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manchuna's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayer honoring the three jewels, savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. Maybe just His Holiness, and then the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to look forward to seeing you next week, and then we'll dig more into the motivation. Please bring all your questions, and I'll try to resolve as much as I can. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you all for joining us. Remember that within about 2 or 3 days, this will be available online if you want to share it or watch it again.